Well, hello everyone. Just doing the final things that I normally do right before we get started. As you can see, we'll start in about 25 seconds, and the lesson today will be about school. I think I have everything set the way it's supposed to go. Let me do a little audio check. Looks good. We'll start in about 7 seconds. I'm pretty excited. I like talking about school. It's one of my favorite topics. Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about school. I love talking about school. As most of you know, my real job, as we might say in English, is that I am a high school teacher. It's summer right now, so I don't need to go to work. But during the school year, I am a high school teacher, and I love talking about school. I think it's because when I was young, when I was a student, I loved being in school. I have always loved learning. And so I think naturally people who love learning sometimes choose to become teachers. So as a teacher, I'm always excited to do a lesson about school. In particular, this lesson is about back to school. Back to school will be happening in a few weeks here in Ontario, Canada. It's kind of the middle of summer vacation, but I've noticed already that the back to school sales have started. So students usually need to buy a few things before they go back to school. So today I thought I would do a lesson on back to school. Before we get started, a few things. This is a bit of a repeat of a lesson that I did 2 years ago. So if you were around 2 years ago, parts of this lesson might be familiar, although I did add almost 15 new words and phrases to it. So it's a bit of a repeat lesson. I think some of you were around 2 years ago, so you might recognize some of this, but I have added quite a few new things to it as well. I do want to thank Todd for being here today. I think Todd is flying solo today. I think he's the only moderator. I think the other three are busy. Or actually, I told two of them they didn't need to do it today. So just Todd today. I think he can handle it. He is a pro. Please keep the chat wherever it is on your screen in English. Please enjoy good, fun English conversations while I am talking about the subject of back to school. I have to apologize to Brett for talking about back to school already. Teachers don't always like to talk about the back to school season. It went too early in the summer, but I thought considering that August 1st is this weekend, it would be a good time to start. Let me do a little audio check and a little technical check. Sounds like everything is working great. Let's get this lesson started. Did I say hi to everybody yet? I should still say hi. Hi to Brent from American English with This Guy, Mode Eggs, Julia Olise, Semra is here, Maria C. I know that Naomi T is here, Madi is here as well, Eugene is here, Rod, the Brazilian English teacher, Lolly is here as I scroll back. I know Ruslan is here, Mohammed, Grace Chin, Joel, Roosevelt, Midmino. There's too many names. There's already 238 people watching. I'm going to have to just start the lesson. Let's go. So school, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. School, I actually modified this slide for this lesson because school may look like one or the other when you look at the pictures over here. School last year, for the most part for us, was online, but also we had in-person learning. So if you look to the far side of this slide, you'll see there's a boy looking at his computer. He would be doing what's called online learning or remote learning. And these students are doing in-person learning. So school is, of course, the place where kids go. In Canada, kids from the age of about 4 or 5 up to age 17 or 18 attend school on a daily basis. So school is the place where children go in order to learn things. This is what's called back to school time. Back to school usually happens right after a holiday that we call Labor Day in Ontario, Canada. And in many other parts of the world, I think it's similar. Back to school is the day when kids go back on the bus or they walk to school and they start school again. So the phrase back to school is used a lot right now. We would call this the back to school season, or it's back to school time. Or you might even say something like, well, it's almost back to school, isn't it? So we use the phrase in a lot of different ways in English to talk about usually the end of August and the first few days of September. We would call that the back to school time. It is, of course, right now summer holidays, or what we also call summer vacation. So if there are any students watching this, they probably don't want to talk about back to school. Back to school is not a fun time for some students. I'm sure some students look forward to it, but some students do not look forward to it. But it is right now summer holidays or summer vacation. In Ontario, Canada, students get 2 months off from school, and teachers do too, which is kind of a bonus. And we would refer to that as summer holidays or summer vacation. A good time to hang out with friends, maybe just read a book. Older students usually get part-time jobs, so they'll get a summer job during the summer vacation or summer holidays. My 2 oldest kids both have summer jobs right now. They both found places to work for the summer so that they could earn some money. We have, of course, other things that happen during back to school time, and we add the phrase back to school to it. So right now, people are going to start to do back to school shopping. You know, the word to in back to school, sometimes we actually put the number 2 back to school. Guess it looks cooler. But right now, I've noticed that we get flyers in the mail. A flyer is like a paper that shows everything that is on sale at a store. And all of them say back to school shopping time. So we have times of the year when we shop for certain things. This is certainly a time of the year where there will be a lot of people doing back to school shopping. And of course, because of that, we will have what's called back to school sales. A back to school sale is a sale during the month of August where things that you normally buy for school are cheaper than they normally would be. So right now, the back to school shopping has started. The stores are sending out flyers where they're showing a lot of back to school sales. You know, pencils 50% off, or pencil cases 25% off. There are a lot of back to school sales happening right now because students need things like school clothes. So in general, sometimes kids buy clothes just for school. It's not really any different than their normal clothes, but it might be different than the clothes they play in outside. They might be clothes that they keep a little cleaner because they are their school clothes. So for our kids, we would say something like, well, we need to go buy some more school clothes for you because that pair of pants has a hole in the knee, or that shirt doesn't fit you anymore. You need some new school clothes. Some schools, though, have a school uniform. This is quite common at probably, I would say about 10 to 20% of the schools in Canada have school uniforms. I know in certain countries, school uniforms are very, very popular. For instance, the school I work at has school uniforms, but the school my kids go to, my younger kids, doesn't have school uniforms. So again, a school uniform is clothing that you usually buy from the school or you buy from a store that the school chooses so that all the students look the same. Common school uniforms would be like black pants with a white shirt and tie and those types of things. So if your school doesn't have school uniforms, you might just need school clothes. Maybe you need some school clothes because as a kid, sometimes kids outgrow them, and then maybe you need to get some new shirts and pants for your school uniform. And of course, there are back to school sales because people need school supplies. So the word or phrase we use to refer to all the things you buy when you need to go to school, we would call school supplies. Some schools supply certain things to the students, but other schools, most schools require students to buy certain things before they go, in Canada, of course. So the school would supply things like glue or maybe colored paper if they're doing art, or paint. But my kids and most Canadian kids have to buy certain school supplies in order to go to school. They might need a binder. We would call this a 3-ring binder. This is something that you can open and close, and it can hold paper. You might need to buy a notebook, which is just a small book that you can take notes in. When you're a student at school, it's a good idea to take notes. You might need to buy some pencils, pens, or a highlighter. So a pencil is, of course, something you can sharpen, and it's used for math or art classes. A pen is something that's permanent. This is a Bic pen made by my friends over in France. Bic pens are really cool. I like them. I shouldn't tell you this, but I actually like chewing on the cap of the Bic pen. I shouldn't mention that, should I? And then a highlighter is something you can use to basically make words yellow so that you can see them easier. A highlighter is a really good tool if you're learning English. You can highlight new words. Don't do that in library books, though. Only use a highlighter in a book that you own. You might need an eraser so that if you write something in pencil, you can erase it later. You might need a pencil case to store all of your stuff. So once again, these are all school supplies that kids in Canada, and I think most other countries, would need to buy. They would need to go to a back to school sale. And if they didn't have a pencil case, they would need to buy one. The school would not give these items to the kids. You might need a little pencil sharpener. Although most classrooms have a pencil sharpener, sometimes students are required to have a small one with them that they can keep in their pencil case. And maybe they need a laptop, maybe they need a calculator, and maybe they need a backpack, or what we sometimes just call a book bag. So let's quick review again. These are all things that we would call school supplies. And some of these things students will need to buy before they go back to school. A binder, maybe 2 binders, maybe 4. They might need a notebook. They might need a pencil, pen, and a highlighter, or kind of like a few of each. They would put them with their eraser in their pencil case, and they might need a small pencil sharpener, and they might need a laptop and a calculator. This really depends on the school as well. I think at my school, we have a class set of calculators. And then they might need a backpack or a book bag for all of these items. So let's have a look at a few questions. I know that there are a few questions. Let me do an audio check as I do that. Here we go. It sounds like everything is working great. Let's see here. First question is from Ruslan. Sorry, my headphone. I'm being distracted. I shouldn't point to this. I'm being distracted by this fan that I put here. You see how it's making like a little flash? Don't look at that. Don't be distracted while you're learning. Ruslan says, "Hello, dear teacher. How are you today, sir? I'm good. What was your favorite subject in school and what was the most hated one?" When I was in grade 8, when I was in the 8th grade, in Canada, we say grade 8. In the United States, they would say 8th grade, I think. The school bought 4 computers. And because I was good at math, I was allowed to learn how to use the computer. That was my favorite subject in school and continued to be one of my favorite subjects. I liked most of the subjects, but French and computer studies were certainly 2 of my favorites. Great question, Ruslan. Trypto says, "Hello, Mr. Bob. Did you love your school when you were a student?" I loved learning. I really liked school. I didn't like all of my teachers. I think that's a common story for a lot of students. I think that of all of the teachers I had, I liked most of them, and some I liked a lot, but there were a few teachers I didn't like. I had a few teachers who were really mean, and I always vowed to myself that if I became a teacher, I would not be mean. So did I love school? Yes. Did I love all my classes? I liked learning. I liked 85% of the teachers. Is that a good way to put it? Yaroslav says, "Hi, Teacher Bob. How are you? Do you want to go back to school in September?" Yes. So that is one of the signs. If a teacher likes their job, around the middle of August, they're sad that summer vacation is ending, but they also start to become happy to go back to school. I know that it's a good job for me because in the month of August, I start to think of new things I could use or teach in my classes. So I start to get excited about teaching. It's a good sign. If a teacher gets really grouchy about going back to work at the end of August, that's a bad sign, I think. Let's see here. Linda says, hi, Bob. Do kids that go in elementary school have to do homework during summer vacay, which is kind of a slang word for vacation? In Italy, they have a workbook to do during the 3 month of vacay. Thanks, Linda. No, our kids don't. I don't think it's very common. But I will say this. Some kids go to summer school. If you want, you can take summer classes. And if you fail a class, especially in high school or secondary school, you can take that class again in the summer. I don't think that is very fun at all. I would never want to teach summer school, and I would never want to go to summer school. Summer is for having fun, I think. That's my belief. Let's see. Zana says, hi, the greatest teacher. Imagine you are a student again and you are entering a class where the teacher is Bob the Canadian. What are your feelings? Well, this is what I've heard from most students, and I've mentioned this before. Because I have short hair and I don't usually smile a lot on the first day of school, I think because I'm nervous, I think students who don't know me think I'm really mean. So here's what my face looks like. I mean, that's not a very friendly face because I'm busy. Do I have all my photocopies? But once students get to know me, I think most of them find that I'm an enjoyable teacher. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to know as a teacher. But how would I feel? I'd be like, oh, this guy looks mean. That's what I would feel. Hey, I do want to say hi to the 419 people watching. If you're new here, don't forget to click that red subscribe button there to get notified when I do new English lessons. Let's see here. Next question is from Katarina. Good Friday, dear teacher Bob. What other similar word combinations, little fix there, can you say, come back to school, return to school, thank you, have a sunny summer day? We usually just call it back to school, or the return to school would be a little more formal. I like in French, at least in Quebec, they call it la rentrée, which is kind of like the return. This kind of has a nice sound to it. But in English, we generally call it back to school, or more formal would be the return to school. I'd be curious, I know Brent's in the chat. Maybe Brent can let us know out in Maine whether I'm pretty sure it's just back to school season. When I was in Michigan, I remember seeing flyers with back to school sales. I think it's fairly similar in the United States. Let's see here. Just a sec here. Let's see. I'm not sure about this question. So I'm going to skip it. I don't quite, well, let me go back to it for a sec. Let me pull it up on the screen. I'll try to puzzle through this, Judith. I need to go back to school for sure. If we use tell, we have to use something behind, like me, tell me. Zipper themselves actually predate the facts of the tale we've told thus far. Good. The tale we've told thus far. Good. Yeah, so zipper themselves actually predate the facts of the tale we've told thus far. That sentence doesn't make a lot of sense to me because I think it's out of context. So I'm going to leave that one, Judith. But definitely, when you say things like tell me or tell us, you do need to add kind of the preposition behind or the pronoun behind to indicate who you're actually talking to. So mode, I actually have the word class clown coming up in a bit. I'll explain what that is to everyone. Hi, Mr. Bob. Sorry if this question puts you on the spot. In all honesty, have you ever had the tendency to favor students who perform better than others in your class? Thank you. No, I'm happy that I teach almost exclusively classes where grading is not very subjective. So for instance, in French class, it's either right or wrong. So you can't really favor students when you're grading a quiz out of 10 and if something is right or wrong. In other classes where students do long pieces of writing, I think it might be easier for teachers to accidentally do that. But generally, I teach classes where your answers are almost always right or wrong. And so I do not favor students. It's something that teachers, I think, struggle with. You want to be sure you are fair to everyone, and I try my best to always do that. Let's see. Arthur says, "Hi, Bob. Have an awesome weekend. I am wondering whether back to school or back to school with dashes is more proper when placed before a noun. Thank you in advance." Yeah, so if we make it an adjective, if we say it is the back to school season, we would put dashes between it. But what's happened with the phrase back to school is it's so widely used, and especially at this time of year, it's in flyers, it's in print, it's on, ads on the internet. People often just forget the dashes. So you'll see it both ways, but you will definitely, the most correct way would be to say back to school shopping should have dashes, but you won't see dashes in most advertisements. Let me do an audio check again for a sec. There we go. Let me do one more question. Let's see here. Fyodor says, "Hello, Bob. How do you think? Do students in school actually like studying, or do they do it because they have to? Did you like school, or did you do it because you had to?" So I really liked learning. And it was, I don't mean to brag, but it was fairly easy for me to remember stuff. And so I didn't mind studying, because if I needed to study for a test, if I studied for an hour and a half, I would do really good on the test. I did have friends where if they studied for an hour or 2 hours, it didn't help very much. And I think it was very, very frustrating for them. To answer your question though, yes, some students like studying. Some do it because they have to, because their parents make them. Some just really like getting good grades. Some students are really competitive, so they do well because they want to get better grades than others. So all the things that motivate people in real life also motivate students in school. So there's all kinds. Let's see here. I'm going to go back to the slides. Let's get this lesson rolling again. So the first day of school is called the first day of school, but I wanted to put this slide in here. I mean, it sounds pretty obvious, doesn't it? In our part of Canada, the day after Labor Day, which is a holiday in September, we have the first day of school. So the first day of school this year, I think, I actually didn't look this up. I should have looked it up. First day of school this year is probably September 7th. That would be my guess. First day of school, September 7th. But you also have really little kids who haven't gone to school before, sometimes have their first day of school. So they've never been to school, and that's an exciting day for them. The first day of school, whether you're like 4 or 5 and you've never been, or if you're like 14, it's usually a day where parents take a photo. We often take a photo on the first day of school of our kids with their backpacks and their new school clothes, and then we put that in a photo album. The school day in Ontario, Canada. So when you talk about, the work day is from about 8 till 5. Some people work from 7 till 4:30. Some people, their work day is 7:30 till 5:30. But the school day is a little shorter. And the term we use to talk about the length of the day out of school is school day. Students have to get used to it. In Ontario, Canada, the school day can range from 8:30 to 3:30. It might go from 9 till 3. For my school, the school day is from 8:30 to 3:30, and classes start at 10 to 9 and go to 3:05. So the school day is just a way of talking about the day at school. If you are older, and if you are at a high school, you might have a semester system. The semester system is a system where you take certain classes for about 4 or 5 months, and then you are done, and then you take other classes. Our elementary schools, our grade schools, kids under the age of 13 do not have semesters. They usually take the same classes all year long. So they'll have math class every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday for 40 minutes or something like that. In our high schools, we have a semester system. So this fall, for the fall semester, for semester 1, I'm teaching 2 classes this year. I'm teaching a computer class and a business class. And then semester 2, I'm teaching my 3 French classes again. So a semester system is when you break the year up a little bit. Of course, the student is the person who is learning. We don't use the word pupil anymore. It's kind of an old term. And we sometimes use the word learner, although this is more common in other English-speaking countries. In Canada, we would call the kids who go to school students. I think 30 or 40 years ago, you might call them pupils. And we usually don't use the word learner very often. Like, how many students do you have in your class? That would be a common question, not how many learners. Although it is a common English word that means the same as student. You might have a student in your class who is a class clown. So a class clown is a student who is always smiling and laughing and doing silly things. You can see this boy has decided to take all his new pencils and insert them in his ears and in his nose, and just be silly. Class clowns often tell jokes. As a teacher, when I write on the board, sometimes class clowns say funny things and make everyone laugh, or they throw things. A class clown is someone who, I was going to say, isn't serious about learning, but I've actually had class clowns who got the best grade in the class in the past. Some students can be silly and also learn very well at the same time. We don't use this term anymore. In Canada, we also call a student like this a keener. That's a Canadian word, I think, though. But a teacher's pet is a student who likes to sit at the front, likes to answer the questions, and all of those kinds of things. I think Agnon, if you watch Petit Nicolas in French, I think Agnon is the teacher's pet. He's the small boy that knows all the answers. Sorry, that's a little bit of French. I might have got the name wrong. But a teacher's pet, it's not a nice term. It's kind of an insult now. As a teacher, I would not use the word teacher's pet. But when students bug each other, they might say, you're the teacher's pet. You're always answering the questions. And then, of course, you have the teacher. The teacher is the person at the front of the room who does all of the teaching. In Canada, we have one teacher per classroom, but there also might be someone called a teacher's aide who helps the teacher. Or there might be a teaching assistant. There might be a student teacher who comes and helps the teacher for a few months to learn how to teach. But the person who does most of the work is the teacher. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Teacher aides do a lot of work as well. The person who plans the lessons is the teacher. If you are at a university or college, we would call that teacher a professor. Now, some of you call me Professor Bob, and that would be incorrect. I know in other languages like French, professeur means teacher, but in English there is a distinction. So I am a teacher. Brent in the chat from American English with this guy is a teacher. If Brent or I went and got our PhD, and if we went and taught at a university, we would then be Professor Bob and Professor Brent. That's a nice ring to it, doesn't it, Brent? By the way, I have no desire to do that at this point in my life. I like what I'm doing now. The place where you teach is called a classroom. I'm going to speed up maybe a bit here. I think some of these are quite familiar to you. So a classroom is a place where you teach. By the way, one of the original classrooms was a tree. So hundreds of years ago, trees used to be classrooms because if you learned outside, it was a nice shady place to learn. So sometimes when I'm making a lesson under a tree, it makes me smile because I feel like I'm an old-fashioned teacher from 500 years ago teaching under a tree. If you are at a university, you could go to a classroom. You might also call it a lecture hall. So when I was in university, some of my classes were in small classrooms and some were in lecture halls, which were bigger rooms where more people could sit and learn. You, of course, will have a desk. This we would call a student's desk. There's also a teacher's desk at the front of the room, which is bigger. And there's all different kinds of desks in Canadian classrooms. My students don't like these kinds of desks where the seat is like connected to the desk, because some students by grade 12 are quite tall. They're very big, and it's hard to fit in a desk when you're 6'2" and in grade 12. There will be probably a whiteboard or a chalkboard in the room. We have more whiteboards than chalkboards now. Chalkboards have kind of slowly been removed from classrooms over the last 20 years and have been replaced with whiteboards. A whiteboard's a little cleaner. You don't get chalk on your hands when you use a whiteboard, but you might see a whiteboard or blackboard in the room. By the way, even if the blackboard is green, we still call it a blackboard. So I still have a classroom where I do have a blackboard at the back, and it's actually green, but it's still called a blackboard or chalkboard. You could just call it a chalkboard too. And then of course you have whiteboard markers. So on the far side of this image, you can see whiteboard markers. They are actually the exact same kind I use in my room, Expo. And then you see that there is chalk. I like to use different colors, especially when I'm teaching French. It's nice to write sentences in one color and then kind of teach things about the sentence using another color. Very, very handy to use different colors to teach different grammatical or grammar concepts when I'm teaching French. And then here's another eraser. So just like the first eraser, which is used to erase pencil, this eraser can be used to erase whiteboard markers or chalkboards or blackboards. And then there will probably be a bulletin board in the room where students can hang their work or where the teacher can hang some posters. And usually in my room, I have students create different, they do different assignments where they create something visual, and then we will put that on the bulletin board for everyone else to see. We do, in the earlier classes, we do things like comic strips in French, and then we put them on the bulletin board. And we use, of course, either a push pin, which is the red thing here. We would call that a push pin, or thumbtacks. I generally use push pins. I find they're easier to take back out. Thumbtacks go in really nicely, but it's sometimes hard to get the thumbtack back out again. And then there will, of course, be a projector and a screen. The projector in this picture is on the ceiling, and the screen is way over there on the far wall. We also have in our classrooms something called a smartboard, where you can write on the smartboard and it shows up on the computer through the projector. A little bit hard to explain. I don't use my smartboard a lot because I do all of my annotations on my laptop, which I put onto the projector screen. Let's see where we're at. Last thing for this section, bookshelf. There might be a bookcase or bookshelf in your classroom. So for me, I have bookshelves that are full of French books because I teach French. There's a few computer books on there, but they're really old. When you buy a textbook for a computer class, within a few years, it's obsolete. The information changes way too quickly. So you might have a bookshelf or a bookcase in your classroom. Let's go back to questions. Let me just make one small change here. We're going to go to members only chat for a little bit. Let me make sure I'm clicking the right thing here. I think I am. There we go. So I'm going to continue answering questions from the submission form. But if you are a member of the channel, first of all, thank you. And by the way, the lesson's not over. We're 2/3 of the way through. So I'll do questions for about 10 minutes from members only, questions from the chat, and I'll keep answering questions here if there aren't any. So Sala says, why the beginning of study is so heavy and how to make school enjoyable. So 2 things I would say. Don't get behind in your work. One way to make school enjoyable is to do your work every day. The least enjoyable thing about school is when a month or 2 has gone by and you are behind. So do your work. And the beginning is not necessarily harder. It just might be that you're not used to learning. So in my classrooms, the amount of work is the same all semester. So yeah, it might just be the shock of starting something new. Naomi says, hi, Teacher Bob. What is or was the happiest moment as a teacher? Thank you in advance. So one of the happiest moments for me as a teacher is when students start, sometimes students like what they're learning so much, they don't want to leave class. So especially when I teach computer game programming, that class in particular, sometimes the bell goes and they don't want to leave because they like what they're doing so much. So that's a good thing. Julia says, "Hi, dear teacher. If you ever taught your own kids, how would they have to call you in class? Mr. Pa." They would have to call me Mr. and with my last name. And I have taught my own kids. They usually just say, "Hey." They just don't use my name at all. Semra, nice to listen to you, Bob. Thanks. You're welcome. Key Park, that's really cool for teachers having summer and winter vacations. That makes life some variation. You have some expectations at the beginning and at the end of the summer and winter. Yeah, so it is nice. Generally, though, yeah, most teachers will be taking courses in the summer. I, in particular, don't take courses. But some teachers spend 2 to 3 weeks in the summer taking courses, or they are required to. I'm not required to, so I learn a lot on my own. Brent from American English with this guy. Do you have students who wear the same hoodie for an entire week? That's a big thing with some teenagers in the US now. I'm not a fan. Yes, we do have a hoodie that's part of the school uniform, and some students do wear it quite a bit. And then I just turn the heat up in the class. No, I don't do that. Modags, hi, Mr. Bob. Seriously, you should stop the habit of chewing pen caps, especially after COVID. Yes, I should. I will try to remember that. Eugene from Etobicoke says, Bermudian athlete Duffy won the gold medal in the women's triathlon at the Tokyo 2020, a population of only 70,000. She is 33 years old. In addition, physical strength, she relies on willpower in the triathlon. That is amazing. When I was 33, there's no way I would have been able to do even a small part of that race. Mirage says, waiting for lesson of words followed by out. Oh yes, I did say I would do that, didn't I? I'll try to remember that, Mirage. Semra, you are a humble teacher, Bob. Thanks. You are our pro. Thanks, Semra. Yeah, I'm a pro level teacher. That's me. By the way, there's one thing I should mention. As a teacher, I think that students like my classes, but the one thing they don't like is it sometimes takes me a long time to grade their work or their assignments. That's my major flaw as a teacher. Students will hand things in, and sometimes it takes like a week or 2 weeks for me to grade it and hand it back. That's my major flaw. Let's see. Wanda says, oh wait, Modags. I really hated it at school when I lent my pen to a classmate and then they started chewing its cap. Yes, that would be annoying. Wanda says, hi teacher Bob, how are you? Is it correct to put a MSc before the name of someone that concluded a master's degree course? Thanks. I'm not 100% sure because there are different master's degrees. Like I think I'm not, there's masters of science. So I'm not 100% sure. I think it depends on what master's degree you got. Let's see. Let me make sure I didn't skip any questions here. As I do that, hi to the 544 people watching. This is the members only question time. It only lasts for 10 minutes. We'll get back to the lesson in a moment. Just let me finish these up. Let's see here. Linda, are students allowed to bring their cell phone in class? So most of our classrooms have a basket at the front. And if students cannot stop using their phones, we ask them to put their phone in the basket during class. Some teachers require all students to do that. For me, I usually just wait. If it's a problem, I'll just say, okay, Joey, you have to leave your phone in the basket every day because otherwise you won't get any work done. And the basket's on the teacher's desk. Modags, I don't think a class clown like me will ever be any teacher's pet. However, I can sometimes be the teacher's pet peeve. I hope that's not my case, Mr. Bob. Yeah, so a pet peeve is something that bothers you. You don't want to be someone's pet peeve. Although that did make me laugh. Maria C. Hi, Bob. How are you? What did you enjoy the most, high school or university time when you were studying? So there was a period in high school where like in grade 9 and 10, I did really well in my classes and I did very little work. That was one of my most enjoyable times. In grade 11 and 12, I didn't do as well, but I worked harder. And then in university, I did okay, but I worked really hard as a student. So I think there was like a sweet spot in grade 9 and 10 where with very little work, I got very good grades. That was one of my most enjoyable times in school. Let's see here. Rod, hi Rod. What is the most rewarding thing being a teacher, Bob? I think when you see students learn on their own, like you kind of got them started and then they kind of keep doing it themselves, especially after they graduate. Samuel Chen, my two aunts are middle school teachers. They are very strict to my cousins. Do you think teachers tend to be strict to their children? Thanks, Teacher Bob. Yes, I think teachers tend to be strict if they have their own kids in their classroom. Lolly, Bob, are you a strict or cool teacher? I think I was cool. Now I'm just old. No, I don't know what the answer is, Lolly. I've never really asked my students, but from what I've heard, I'm not really strict. I think that I'm an easy teacher, but I actually give a lot of work, according to some of my students. And I think it depends on what class you take with me. So if you take one of my French classes or computer classes, I think I'm a little more easygoing. So maybe students like me more. I don't know. Brent from American English with this guy. I need to take classes in the summer sometimes. Every 5 years, I need to get recertified. Yeah, that's a very common approach here as well. I'm exempt from taking summer classes. I'll tell you why sometime, Brent, but it's because I do a lot of other things on the side that relate to my teaching. So that's always helpful. Let's see here. Mode, Todd the Canadian. How do you feel now that you've become a pro senior moderator? Nothing much has changed, though it has been fun watching the channel evolve from when I first started. Yeah, that's true. Big changes since Todd started. Julia says, thank you, dear teacher. Mirage says, oftentimes I heard people go very bottom, very back. Is that correct? Like you can get cereal from the very bottom of the cereal box. You can get something from the very back of the cupboard for sure. Let's see here. Just Mode and Brent talking. Let's see here. I think I'm going to go back to the lesson. Yeah, let's do that. I see Mode and Brent and a few people having a chat there. Let me just get back to subscriber only mode. Let me flip that on. And then I will get back to the lesson. Let me just double check a few things. Let me see if my audio is still good. Excellent. Okay. Did I click all the right buttons? I think I did. Okay. Oh yes, we just finished talking about what is in a classroom. And we are now going to talk about just a few odds and ends about school. So one of those would be textbooks. Some classes require that you have a textbook. Most schools in Canada, when you are in school, like if you're in grade 1 up to grade 12, so in elementary school, grade school, or high school, schools provide the textbooks, okay? So you do not have to buy your textbook. So when you go to math class in grade 9, on the first day of school, the teacher will give you a textbook. When you go to university or college in Canada, you have to buy your textbooks. So again, a textbook is a book that has all of the information you need to learn, or most of it, for that class. So when you take a French class with me, I give you a French textbook, and it's like grade 9 French textbook. Actually, it's called Express 9e. For grade 9. But the textbook contains most of what you will learn that semester in printed form. And again, in elementary schools and high schools in Canada, the teacher will give you a textbook. So if you're in university, though, it can be quite pricey. I know even 25 years ago when I was in university, it was like $400 or $500 a semester to buy textbooks. It was expensive. Now, during class, the teacher will teach a lesson. So for me, a lesson is all of the things I have planned for one class. There might be small lessons within the bigger lesson, but basically I make a lesson plan and then I teach the lesson plan that day. So students will take certain lessons from me. An assignment is when I ask a student to do a certain type of work and then give it to me when they're done, okay? So a lesson can have assignments in it, but sometimes my lesson, I don't require the students to give me anything. I'll say, write in French, write what you did yesterday in 5 sentences, and then I'll have them read it out loud. And I don't take the paper from them and grade it. It's just a little lesson to practice. But an assignment would be if I said, write 5 paragraphs about something you like doing and give it to me. And then as a teacher, I will grade it or I will correct it. In Canada, we say I will mark it and then give it back. So lessons aren't always graded, but assignments are usually things that I would collect and grade. Now you can do assignments that aren't graded, but generally if I say, you know, this assignment is due tomorrow, or here's an assignment, please finish this. Let's see here. Lockers. So generally our grade schools and elementary schools don't have lockers. Students usually just hang their book bag on a hook. But in high school, you usually have a locker, and you usually have a combination lock on your locker, and you would put your books in your locker and only take the books out that you need for the class you are going to. The lockers are usually all in a hallway. So a school is a fairly, well, they used to be fairly boring buildings. So, you know, 10 or 20 years ago, a school was just hallways and classrooms and some bathrooms or washrooms. Now we have hallways and classrooms, and we're starting to add other spots to our school. Like our school has a nice meeting area that we call an atrium. Of course, we have a gymnasium as well. But lockers, if you get a locker, it will be in the hallway. Your locker will have a number on it. So on the first day of school, you would have to find your locker. When I was in school, I had to share a locker. My school didn't have enough lockers, so everyone in the 9th grade had to share a locker with someone else. I ended up sharing it with a good friend of mine, so it wasn't a problem, but it certainly was crowded by the lockers. So young kids will go out for recess. So during the day, they will have breaks, and they are called recess. So in Canada, if you are in anywhere from kindergarten, grade 1 up to grade 8, you will have recess during the day. Elementary schools have recess. We don't call it recess in high school, though. We simply call it lunchtime. So my school in particular, it's a high school. There are 2 classes in the morning, and then we have lunchtime, and then there are 2 classes in the afternoon. There's a small break between the first 2 classes, but for high school students, we don't call it recess. They don't go out for recess. Sometimes the grade 9 students on the first day of school, they might ask, when is recess? And then I just say, oh, here we just have lunchtime. There's no recess. I try to answer that as nicely as possible. You can just call it lunch, but we do certainly use the word lunchtime most often. Like, oh, I have a meeting at lunchtime, or can you come and write your quiz at lunchtime, the one you missed last week? Lunchtime. I usually just eat at lunchtime. That's my favorite thing to do at lunchtime. Younger kids will play on the playground. So elementary schools and grade schools will have playgrounds, and they'll have lots of playground toys and things for students to do. So at recess, they will usually go outside and play on the playground. Now I know from lessons in the past, people have asked, do Canadian kids go outside for recess and play on the playground in the middle of the winter? Yes. If it's above minus 20 degrees Celsius, then kids will go outside and play. If it's below minus windy, we will have indoor recess instead of outdoor recess. But that's at grade schools. At high school, the kids just do whatever they want at lunchtime. So there's 3 things that you might do in a classroom, and each one is slightly bigger than the other. A quiz is usually something that's really simple. It's a test that takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It might only have 5 or 10 questions on it. I might say to my students, you have a small quiz tomorrow. You need to know these 20 vocabulary words. A test is definitely bigger. A test might take anywhere from 30 minutes to over an hour. Our classes are 70 minutes long. They're an hour and 10 minutes long. So students might write a test that takes half the class. It might take the whole class. There might even be 1 or 2 students still writing their test when we get to the end of class. And then at the end of our semesters, we have what are called exams. We actually also have them sometimes in the middle. You can have a mid-term exam. So halfway through the school year or halfway through the semester, you might have a midterm exam. And of course, an exam is a very large test that takes about 2 to 3 hours to complete. And it's the short form for examination. So an examination That's just too hard to say, isn't it? Exams a lot easier. Students have exams at the end of their semester and at the end of their school year. So in Ontario, Canada, students from grades 7 or 8 up have exams. Usually younger children don't have exams. And then, of course, some kids go to school on a school bus. A school bus in Canada looks just like this. It is a big yellow bus. All of our school buses are yellow. They have lots of lights on them. When they stop to pick up kids, the red lights flash. The little stop sign goes out. And if you pass a school bus with its lights flashing and the stop sign out, the police will give you an enormous ticket. I'm not sure how much it is, but hundreds of dollars if you pass a school bus. It is, do not ever pass a school bus if the stop sign is out and the lights are flashing. It's very dangerous for you, dangerous for the kids. And if you do it and get caught, it's a pretty big fine. You don't want to do it. By the way, a little fun fact, my grandfather was a farmer, but he also drove school bus. I was not aware of that until a few years ago. There was a picture of my grandfather's farm taken from an airplane, and there was a school bus parked beside the house. And I was like, what's that? And they said, oh, Grandpa used to milk the cows, and then he would drive the school bus, and then he would come home and do all his farm work, and then he would go and do the run at the end of the day. Lots of fun. Hey, that's the end of the formal part of the lesson. If you were just here to learn about school, that's awesome. I am going to spend the next 10 minutes going through the rest of the questions. Let me get them up on the screen. Let me see, how many do I have left? Quite a few, so I don't think I'll get through all of them, but I will try my best. Here we go. Natalia, dear teacher Bob, let me just check something. I just had a funny error. No, we're good. My camera's doing weird things. Maybe that's what it is. Okay, sip of water. Dear teacher Bob, how did you behave at school? Were you a shy boy, a bookworm, or a bully? Tell us about your attitude. I was friendly. I had good friends. I wasn't a bookworm, although I did read a lot. I was quite shy, actually. I think that I was shy until grade 10 or 11. I was quite shy. I loved learning. And I wasn't a bully, but I certainly didn't back down if someone tried to bully me. So I did stand up for myself. I hope you know what that means. I didn't fight. Well, I did fight a couple. Let's not talk about that. I did not like bullies. Bullies really bothered me. So if someone bullied a friend of mine, I would usually be stepping in and making sure that didn't happen again. That's all I'll say about that. Ashraf, hello, teacher Bob. How are you? Could you tell us about your first day at school? So I have a few first days of school. So my first day of grade 1, my first day of kindergarten, I don't really remember. I was too young. My first day of grade 9, I remember thinking everyone was smarter than me, and I was never going to be a good student because the teacher was asking all kinds of questions and everyone knew the answers. And then my first day of teaching, I was really, really nervous. So all of those could be referred to as my first day of school. Let's see here. I'm going to skip questions if they're not related to school. Okay, so just so you know. Island Resort, hi teacher Bob, you are a greatest teacher. I like that. I'm one of the greatest. By the way, what is your favorite subject? And do you like teaching students? I like teaching students. My favorite subject to teach is, I teach a computer programming class. I really like teaching that class. I do like teaching French though too. That's a lot of fun. My favorite subject when I was a student was anything that involved languages, either programming languages or spoken languages. I like both. Let's see here. Stephen, hi Bob from Taiwan. Just for interest, do the teachers in Canada get their salaries during summer vacation? Yes. So teaching in Canada is a salary-based job. You don't get paid by the hour. You get paid for the year. And so my salary is simply divided up and I get paid twice a month for the entire 12 months. So yes, we definitely get paid during the summer because let me explain a little bit more. There's jobs where you get paid by the hour and you work 40 or 50 hours a week, and those are called hourly jobs. And then there are jobs where you get a salary, where they just say we will pay you this much money for a year, and then you get paid every 2 weeks. So yes. Okay, this one, it's a little awkward, but Giovanni, morning, Mr. Bob. Hope you're great. I wonder if you have an awkward dream at school. A long time ago when I was a child, I dreamed I was naked at school. When people are nervous about being somewhere, especially in a public place, you sometimes have strange dreams about it. I have never had a dream like that, but I have had a dream where I was in front of a classroom and I couldn't talk. Okay, so I've had that dream once in a while. I've also had a dream where I went to school and there were no students. And I also had a dream once where I went to school and I didn't know any of the students' names and they wouldn't listen to me. Teachers often have dreams where students don't listen to them. That's a very common dream for students to have. Slava, hello. Do Canadian schools have problems with bullying? Absolutely, we do. Bullying is an interesting thing it's not interesting. It's a very challenging thing to get rid of, because the more you try to teach kids not to bully, the more they bully people quietly and where you can't see them. So it's a problem in every school all around the world, and it's something we need to fix. Bullying, not a good thing. From Ahmed, hi Teacher Bob from Egypt, you are the best. Please, how to organize my time between learning English and studying during school days, especially as we have 8 subjects. That's a tricky one. So the one thing I would highly suggest is that you study in an English-speaking country. So kind of see if you can find your way into an international student program so that you're getting an education while you're learning English. The other thing I would say is just, I know you feel busy, but compared to what life is like as an adult, I think you probably can manage it. As long as you don't have a part-time job, being in school and doing 8 subjects and learning English should be doable. You're going to be very busy. I'm not saying it will be easy, but I certainly would make sure that stay up to speed in all your classes. Find other people in your classes to do homework with. Like find a homework group. That can be very, very helpful. But yeah, that's a tricky one. You're going to be busy, but I think you can do it. Peter says, can you make a video about your dog? Someday I'll do a video on let's English to use with pets. I think I did one on cats and dogs once. But let's see here. Eva. Hi, Bob. Do you enjoy teaching online? I am learning via Zoom now because of Australian COVID restrictions. I feel like it's really hard to engage. Yeah, I didn't mind teaching on Zoom, but it wasn't ideal. That means that I prefer to be in the classroom. There's certain types of lessons and assignments you just can't do online. And especially in French class, we play a lot of games. There's a lot of games you can play when you learn a language, and you can't play them online. One game we play is, so students are in a group and they have a story and they have to run up to the whiteboard. They have to memorize a sentence and run up and write it on the whiteboard and run back. And they run up one at a time, and they're not allowed to talk while they do it. So you can't really do that on Zoom, can you? Let's see here. Anna. Have a good day. I'm a teacher too. I adore my students. You are so kind for me. What do you think? Is teaching an addiction? I think some teachers are workaholics. I think some teachers really, really enjoy the job, but I wouldn't call it an addiction. I would say that they're just probably doing the right job if they like it so much. Ario. Hello, Hola, Mr. Bob. How are you? What's the difference between a desk and a table in a classroom? Little fix there. I'm going to put an A. Thank you. So a desk is designed for one person. Tables are generally bigger and designed for more people. Although some of the desks I have in my classroom, they look like a small table for one person, but generally that would be the difference. A desk is a work area for one person, and a table is for more than one person. Again, I'm only going to answer questions So Winter, hi Bob. What will you do if your students forget to bring their books from time to time? So I have not solved this problem yet. It can be quite frustrating. What's nice for my upper level French classes, my grade 11 and 12 classes, I have extra books in the classroom, but also those students usually don't forget their books. But I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. I usually just tell them to go get their book from their locker. Usually if a student forgets their book, it's just in their locker down the hall. Khalid says, do you have a group for English class? I do not offer online classes. I don't use, I don't use Telegram. I don't use, I don't do any of that kind of stuff, Khalid. I just make videos and do live streams. That's my thing. Let's see here. Myung Hwan says, we have 6 to 8 classes every day. How many classes do you have in Canada? So students from grade 1 to 8 have about 7 to 8 classes a day. So they have, reading, writing, penmanship, math. I think they still do penmanship. I don't know. They'll have a bunch of classes. But in high school, we in Ontario, Canada, have 4 classes a day for 4.5 months, and then we switch. So you have 8 classes for the year, but you do 4 classes in the fall semester and 4 in the spring semester. So semester 1, you have 4 classes. Semester 2, you have 4. Some students have 5 classes, depends on the type of class. Let's see here. Naomi, in my school, students can come to the teacher's lounge to ask questions during lunchtime. How about your lunchtime? Yes. Our staff room door is usually open. And when I'm having lunch, sometimes a student will come and knock and they'll say, excuse me, can I hand this in? Or often a student will have to write a test or a quiz that they missed. So you'll say, okay, yep, I'll be there in a sec and help you. Some schools, they close the door. Teachers need a break sometimes too, but at our school, the door is open. Let's see here. I think that's it, everybody. I'm going to answer this last one, though. It's not related exactly to school. Mohammed says, hello, how are you doing? I wanted to ask, does reading out loud help in improving reading skills? Well, it helps your reading and your speaking, and it helps connect the two in your brain. And how do I get rid of sub-vocalization while reading? That's a tricky one. You have to just be very intentional about not doing it. So either think, I'm going to read this out loud, or I am not going to read this out loud, and then stick with it. Well, hey, thanks everybody for being here. I think that was a fun lesson. You probably noticed that when I do lessons about things I'm very familiar with, like school, it's more enjoyable for me. I do enjoy all of the English lessons that I do on Fridays, but I have to admit, last week when I did it about the Olympics, I didn't actually know a lot about the Olympics, so I had to do a lot of research to get ready for this lesson or that lesson. This lesson, I didn't have to do very much research. It was fairly easy to just basically talk about my life because I am a school teacher. Anyways, let me wrap things up here. Thanks for being here. If you're one of the 522 people watching, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Remember, a shorter version of this lesson will come out in a couple days with subtitles. And so it's great to just watch that one again or listen to it again to kind of reinforce what you've learned. So have a look for that. I do want to thank Todd for being here and moderating. Thanks to Brent from American English with This Guy and Rod, the Brazilian English teacher, for hanging out in the chat. And I'll try to say bye to as many people as I can. Bye, Anna, Judith, Tony, Salmon, Julia, Wanda, Modags, Maria C., Naomi T., Semra. I think I said Judith already, but I'll say bye again. Let me see here. Gaurav is here. Yanni, Tech is here. Mazur is here. Bye to all of you. Bye to Mode Eggs. I'm just scrolling back in my chat and trying to find. Bye to Nightbot. Nightbot's not a real person, but I should say bye. That's it. I should wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. There will be no live stream tomorrow. I know that there was no live stream last week, but I have, excuse me, I have a family thing tomorrow. So this is kind of new. COVID restrictions are being eased. So we are having an outdoor event and having some people over tomorrow afternoon. So I have to make sure that we are ready for that. So no live stream tomorrow, but there will be one next week, Saturday. Okay, I'll be back on track next week, Saturday. Although I think I mentioned this before, my Saturdays in August, there's a couple Saturdays I can't do live streams, but I'll announce those. But definitely no live stream tomorrow. Sorry about that, but I will be back next week. Anyways, have a good day. I'm going to press the button that ends the live stream now. I hope that you have a great weekend as well. Bye.